Good morning, Apex University. My name is Dan, and I hope you're all enjoying your day so far. And for the extraordinarily perceptive amongst you, you may have noticed in some of my intro clips, as well as some of the gameplays that I have uploaded, that one of the people I play with fairly frequently goes by the name of Volgum. Now, me and Vol met in Overwatch, where he peaked in top 500 as a Zarya main. Quite literally, his name was Zarya main. I first saw his stream with no viewers, no cam and no mic, and I liked his gameplay, gave him some tips, and we ended up playing together, and we've been playing on and off in various games ever since. For those of you that have played Overwatch before, you might remember that Zarya is purely a tracking hero. So as your primary weapon, I'm expecting to see a tracking weapon to make sure you get the most out of your skill set. As you guys might remember, once you're an experienced enough player, not only do you develop a playstyle that fits you, but you also develop an aim style that fits you, that being generally tracking or flicking. In Apex, that means that his aim mostly benefits from automatic weapons. So looking at your first fight, you're running around with a Spitfire and a Havoc at the start of the game. Both tracking weapons, both work very well for your aim type. Together they're not ideal because they serve pretty much the same range and ammo type, but since it's the start of the game, I'm assuming it's just what you found and what you'll work with so far. Your teammate gets into a fight on your left, and out of the two weapons, the best one to use here would be the Spitfire and to hipfire it. That is because your Havoc has slightly less accurate hipfire spread, and it doesn't have a turbocharger, so it would need to charge up before you were able to shoot. When you aim down sights, the Spitfire does make you significantly slower when you strafe than the Havoc, but since you're inside a building at close range, both of these weapons have fairly powerful hipfire spread, you're going to want to hipfire anyway. We see you move into the building and you do just that, and a clean kill follows. Well played. So after downing this first opponent, we see you move on, and what you know so far about this fight is that one opponent that has been downed and is going to get finished by your teammate is a Bloodhound, and the other two opponents, or at least the teammates from this person, you haven't heard yet, you haven't seen them, so they're both unknowns. Which means right now I'm expecting you to be in fight mode. The loot around you shouldn't be important unless you're in a completely safe spot to take it, and right now I would value scouting, looking around where these people are and what they might be playing and being ready, because obviously they know where you are since they can see where their teammate died and what weapon you used to kill them. In general, something we're going to see quite a lot in your gameplay is that you seem to look only at enemies that you have spotted, and you're not really thinking about how many potential enemies are around. In general, as soon as you spot an enemy, you want to assume that they are a full team of 3 and play around there potentially being more opponents. You also want to remember which legends they're playing, so that if you see duplicate legends, you know that there's more than one team. After this, as you move your way towards the middle, we notice that you've got your Havoc out, and once you see an opponent that doesn't appear to be aware of you, we see you aiming in with your Havoc, which you have equipped, and shooting with that. Now, your aim right here is pretty solid and you deal 121 damage, but think about this for a second. You've got a Havoc and a Spitfire, and you can choose which one you're going to use in this situation because the enemy is not aware of you. This enemy is out in the open with their backs turned, so the initial damage you do on them before they turn around or start strafing is very important, because as soon as you hit them they are likely to respawn or run to the nearest cover. Both the Havoc and the Spitfire deal 18 damage per bullet on a body shot and 36 on a headshot. The Havoc needs to charge up because you don't have a turbocharger and has 25 bullets in the clip because energy mags are not in this patch yet. The Spitfire has a common mag on it, but even without it has 35 bullets, which is far more, and doesn't have a charge up time. So you can deal more damage more quickly with the Spitfire, also because the Spitfire has a fire rate of 500 rounds per minute, where the Havoc starts at 450 and ramps up to almost 500, so even at the end of the clip isn't quite as fast as the Spitfire. Overall, the Spitfire's DPS is higher, and in this case, the initial recoil on both is similarly difficult to control, or easy to control depending on how used you are to them, so I would recommend using the Spitfire here. I think using the Havoc for this is the wrong call unless you're trying to conserve your heavy ammo. Then as you move on forward, instead of reloading, you do weapon swap first to see if you can continue damage with the other weapon. Even though you have 14 bullets left, so it's a bit early, I still think that's good, because rather than wasting your time reloading and having them heal, you can continue to pump in damage and hopefully knock somebody. They don't give you the opportunity, but it's the right play still. Then as you push forward, you get pushed back or pressured back by 2 opponents, one of them holding the door, and this enemy got it a bit too far away to push, so rightfully so you drop back and heal, which is very good, which also gives you the opportunity to notice the lifeline still hiding on your left, and you're able to down her. After this, with your full purple armor, you push up while your teammates are also pushed up. So far a great push again. And as you run up to this building, I want to see you grab the Spitfire, not the Havoc, the exact same reasons as before. You're going to want to hip fire as you run in here, and the Spitfire is the better choice for that. As you run through the building, you notice a Bloodhound's ability, tactical ability, being used, and right away, if you think back upon what we said about the start of the team fight, this should tell you that you're dealing with a second team. Because what we knew about the first team is the first opponent that you downed and your teammate finished was a Bloodhound. It is impossible that they were respawned right here because you didn't hear a res ship. So for another Bloodhound to use their tactical ability, this is a second team, as well as if he pushes straight through the building that you see him coming from, he is going to be pre-aimed towards the doorway where you're standing and aiming. So the fact that you saw his ability and you were out of its reach no longer holds an advantage if you hold this angle. If you instead hold the corner on the left or take the rooftop of this building, he won't know where you are, while you do now know where he's coming from, and so you actually have an advantage. You could also, if he pushes through this room while you're rotating to the corner, shoot through the window, which once again gives you first shot and a surprise on this opponent because he used his ability and gives you an advantage. However, I would choose going to the high ground here over shooting through the window if you can, just because this is a second team and you're not quite sure how many of these 6 enemies are engaged with you right now. As we look at the fight unfold, we do indeed see you take a position on the high ground, very good. You take the enemy by surprise and your teammate is good bait in front of you, and you get some great damage in just like that. So after taking care of that opponent, your character Lifeline says she finished the whole squad, which happened with the last kill from your teammate as well. So for now, seemingly this area is safe. As such, you go in for a res and you're able to loot, very good. Now that the team fight is over, focusing on looting is fine, you still want to position yourself in such a way that you are safe, so whenever possible, or if you haven't checked around yourself yet and you think people might be coming for the gunshots from the fight, I would definitely try to loot the boxes that are in a safe place first, and I wouldn't loot outside in the open if my teammates are nearby, because it would make us very susceptible to a third party. You also might want to remember to full heal before you go to any boxes that are in a risky spot. You find yourself a gold peacekeeper while you were looting, which means you now have a more ammo efficient close range secondary available, as well as a digi-threat, thanks to the patch that puts the digi-threat on the gold peacekeeper. And while doing that, your teammate pings an enemy west. So you rotate around via the outside, you forget to full heal, which you probably should have done before getting any of the boxes on the outside, like we said before, but after rotating, you zoom in, they only have common armor, and you do some great damage with decent aim here. Although you do good damage, and this is not necessarily a bad play, I would say giving away your position and forcing them to back off or take better positions here is actually not in your favor. The fact that you just scared this guy by doing a lot of damage makes it more likely that they're going to have a well-defended position while they take cover to heal here than if you got into a better spot first and then shot them from a range or an angle where you could have downed him before he got to cover. Or if your plan here was to deal any damage that your teammates could follow up on because they are closer, you should have probably tapped or burst fired here just to quickly break some armors on anybody that is exposing themselves, and then reload while you run over to help your teammates rush. You drop down to cover when you reload. It's only for a split second, but it's very good, because when you reload you are susceptible to being shot. You push forward to some half cover and you punish somebody who is out in the open with a Spitfire, and this is perfect use of this weapon. We also see you actually walking backwards while you're doing this, because another enemy is shooting you as well, and while you are using the Spitfire you are slow, so you're slowly breaking line of sight, and at the end of finishing this knock here you can either crouch down or turn around and take the last step to break line of sight and heal more safely. So that's a very good play right there. After that we see you run back into the house and start healing. Now you are playing Lifeline, you have slightly faster heals with your passive, but what I really would have liked to see you do here is drop your healing drone on the doorway first and then start a battery so that your health is ticking up while you're recharging your shield, and whatever last bit, if you want to be as fast as possible to get back into the fray before the enemy team revives, you just use a syringe for the last little bit of health that your healing drone hasn't finished yet. It's way faster and it prevents them from being able to respawn safely in case your teammates don't have this covered. Using a medkit in this case is very slow, and after using a battery, I personally honestly would have probably skipped the medkit to push in without it and just used my shield as a buffer, because it isn't worth against enemies with a common armor to give up your advantage with a very slow heal right here. However, it ends up working out and your teammates are pushed up far enough that it's not necessarily a bad play. After healing up, you run back over, you take the same path with half cover and a little bit of high ground, and once again, look for enemies exposing themselves out in the open, as the Pathfinder does. You do great damage to him, and while doing that we also see you using the box on your left for even more proper cover, and this is a perfect angle if you're using an LMG because you are slowed down and not able to strafe as effectively. Having as much cover as possible like this while taking a fight against somebody that has less cover thanks to your high ground angle is a perfect play. As such, you get the down whilst only taking about 50 damage, which in this patch against the Pathfinder is quite a miracle. We instantly see you flick towards the right where the last enemy is and chucking some grenades which can cover your position while you push more forward to finish up the fight. This is a very good play. If you have the advantage of having 2 enemies downed, you want to buy the time you need to traverse the area and get closer, especially since he only has the equivalent of common armor right now with his half damaged purple. And so these grenades prevent the enemy from pushing out and taking a fight unless they completely overexpose themselves, which gives you the time to push up. After chucking the grenades, we see you slide to the left and jump out, where you, even if this enemy exposes themselves to you, you have cover from the truck and the pole behind it, so this is a very good approach. And as you move forward, we see you sliding. You could have also put your weapons away, but it's alright that you didn't, and because you got up closer, you heard the self-res, and you rightfully so stopped it before pushing forward to the last enemy. After that, this final enemy jumps up onto this little high ground here, where you can't see them for a split second, but you know where they are. Now, if you remember the close quarters combat guide, what we talked about is corner baiting. When you know people are chasing you, you can break line of sight and then wait, pre-aim where they are going to be, go straight for a headshot to turn around the odds in a fight. Whenever you chase an enemy like this and they break line of sight from you, try to be ready for them to be possibly corner baiting you. If you're going to run straight in like you're doing here, either instantly ADS with your Spitfire to go for headshots in case that's what he's trying to do to you, or be pre-aimed with a charged Peacekeeper shot so that you can instantly deal a very high amount of damage back to this opponent. Otherwise, you can move more to the left or the right and climb up in a spot where he isn't expecting, so that he has to flick over to where you are, which gives you more time to try and dodge the shots. Or you can simply jump to peek over the edge and then fall back down to see if he was waiting for you, although that slows down your chase. Of course, all of this is superseded if you are close enough to hear the opponent's footsteps. You always want to listen to whether they are still running, and if they stop, try to judge the distance between them and you so that you know where their ambush is. After your teammate finishes up in the bunker area here, you guys make your way over past bridges towards the cave, where the enemy's Caustic and your Bangalore both use their respective smoke and gas abilities to make the area difficult to see. Now luckily you have a Digithreat on your Peacekeeper, allowing you to see through the smoke. I like that as you push up you ADS to see if there's people hiding in it, but from this range you should know with the one-timed Digithreat that you can only see people if they are basically right on the edge of the other side of the bridge from you here. It doesn't reach all the way to your furthest teammate, so if I were you, I would actually go in the gas and try the ADS from there, because that way only a Bloodhound with his ultimate up or somebody else with a Digithreat would be able to shoot back at you. If you have a Digithreat, then it doesn't matter who the smoke belongs to, use it to your advantage, especially since the gas was under the bridge, you easily could have. Now right here we see the gas cutting off your way towards the left, but there's still enemies there, so don't push forward towards the right and ignore it like it's a wall. Just because it is effectively a wall for you, there's still a Caustic that can see through that and people with Digithreat that can see through that, as well as potentially enemies that just healed or are hiding, waiting there to ambush you as you turn your back to it. So keep that in mind as potential enemies even though you can't see them. Then as you chase the enemy past the gas towards Market, you get some great damage on him, but you know as well as I do from this range you're not going to be able to push him before he uses a battery, which effectively puts him back on max health. So as you do, you want to use the time that they are slowed and healing to relocate to a better position so that you can punish them for knowing where they are. You climb on top of Market to do just that, but you hesitate and turn around and you give up the advantage you've just built for yourself, as well as potentially giving this enemy an opportunity to counterpush you. I think at this point you want to commit to this fight because you have given yourself enough advantages that you can ensure that you knock this opponent and then go back to help your teammates, which is far more valuable than going back but ending up in a fight where you're pincered from two sides, because this guy full heals and is then able to come back and shoot you guys in the back. For that reason, when you decide to revive the Bangalore here, I think it's risky because you don't know if you're about to get pushed from behind, where you don't have cover from the res shield. Overall, I think that your hesitation here made this a bad play, while you had the setup for a great play. Then, as you push forward, the enemy Bangalore ends up using their smoke against you, and this is the point where you win for free. That's a kill, because you have a digi-threat. So don't spam with your Peacekeeper here. I know that you're trying to hit him where you last saw him, but it's a waste of potential time while he pushes out of the smoke and you lose the value of that digi-threat. As well as, even if he has a digi-threat, only a wingman would be dangerous there, or another Peacekeeper. With anything else, at that range your Peacekeeper is going to destroy them. Luckily the last enemy doesn't really strafe, so it's great cleanup from there, but just think a bit better about which weapons you use and when, because you do pick the wrong one quite often. After that cleanup, one of your teammates goes down again and you push back. You rightfully so take the high ground on the bridge where you slowly scout around the corner. So far a very good play. And as you turn the corner here, you know that these enemies are probably going to be on the low ground, otherwise they are quite far away and have backed up farther into the tunnel. So because of that, I think you should have pre-equipped a grenade here, because it is very likely that they are close together or in a bad spot. And if you look at the layout of this cave, this bridge, as well as the right side high ground next to you, are the places you want to control to ensure that you have all the good sidelines in this tunnel, and it's very difficult to third party you. That's kind of the power spot right here. So by throwing grenades you can ensure that you hold a more powerful position, as well as making it more difficult for them to thirst your teammate, who sadly then disconnects anyway. You still get some great opening damage in on them, luckily, and after that you do equip your grenade, so you go for the right play. You should have started with that. Once again, you're making the right plays, but you're just a little bit too late with your decisions. You need to be a bit more proactive about this. Some great damage here, you don't push on that, which is the correct decision, because they are still stacked up together, so you don't want to push up on that damage, and luckily one of them overexposes themselves, thinking you are going to push on that. And a great arc star there, allowing you to get a knock and finish the fight up rather quickly. Definitely a bunch of decision making that could be tightened up. You want to be a bit more forward thinking, anticipate what's going to happen or what's likely to happen in the fight so that you're ready for it. But other than that, great place here. We can see some good value, we can see some good experience coming through. You just need to work on your predictions. So you're on 9 kills, you're the kill leader right now, you've got a spectator, and if we look at the minimap on the left top of your screen, we can see that the circle is already closing, and the only 2 buildings that are inside of the circle are the one that you are at and the shed in front of you. The building towards the right, the large 2-story building, is not in the zone. So right now you are in one of the stronger positions within this final circle, and the biggest threats are coming from behind you, where you are on the incline of a hill, because those people would have high ground over you and a direct sideline that they control into your building. You spot one of the last 2 enemy teams across the river and ping them, but right here, because they are in the weaker spot and the only powerful building they can get to, which is the one on your right, is not in the zone, I suggest that you don't push them and you stay put, more quickly scouting if a team is pushing from the other side. You can gatekeep them here quite easily, exactly from where you are, while you have your back covered from the last team, because in a circle this close you always have to remember that the moment you shoot right now, the other team can hear you, and so you will get third partied. You give up this great position sadly, and you push out towards the outside of the zone. You do end up using some very good cover. However, sadly you decide to push out, you go very far out into the open. You do at the last moment decide to use some cover in the trench here on the right, which is good. Your back is now partially covered, but you do have this entire high ground on your back that you can't really run from. So wherever this last team is, if they rush you now, you're probably dead, and you haven't scouted behind you either. So while where you are right now in this trench is an incredibly powerful position, which is perfect against this team in front of you, you're once again not thinking of how many enemies are potentially around you, and even if you get shot and naded from the back here, you don't even turn around or seem to notice. And so being so very focused on the people that you saw in front of you, just like in the start of the game, is the only reason that you lost this 10 kill game right now. You had it, you're clearly good enough, you were owning, you just tunnel visioned a little bit too hard. Really hope that was helpful. Peace.